This message doesn't show up by accident. It doesn't find people who quit on themselves. It finds people who kept going even when the fire went quiet. You might feel tired right now, not lazy, not lost, just worn from carrying weight longer than anyone noticed. There was a time when your vision pulled you out of bed, when effort felt natural, when belief came easy, then life happened. Pressure stacked, expectations multiplied, and somewhere between surviving and providing, your spark dimmed, not disappeared, dimmed. This message appears right before it comes back, because you're standing at a turning point. Not a miracle moment, a momentum moment. And momentum favors the prepared mind. You didn't lose your spark, you invested it. Let me tell you something right now, energy doesn't just disappear. It doesn't vanish into thin air. What happens is you spend it. You spend it building, you spend it providing, you spend it protecting, you spend it enduring. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's proof that you're alive, that you cared, that you were committed. Only the people who've built, who fought, who've endured, know this kind of exhaustion. People who've never had a vision, who've never been responsible for anything bigger than themselves, they don't know this kind of tired. They don't feel this emptiness because they've never poured anything out. That hollowness you feel, that quiet in your chest, that lack of fire, it's the mark of a person who has been building, who has been giving their all. That is not failure. That is life invested. That is living on purpose. Think about athletes, the ones who chase greatness every single day. They push their bodies past the limit. They wake up before the sun. They train when their muscles scream. They endure pain just to get closer to their goals. And after a season of relentless effort, what happens? They hit a flat line. Emotionally, mentally, even when the trophies are there, the medals are around their necks, the applause echoes. They feel a numbness, a weight, a hollowness. It's not that they're weak. It's that they've given everything they have to something bigger than themselves, and the body and mind demand rest. Burnout doesn't choose the lazy. It chooses the relentless. Entrepreneurs experience the same thing. You don't get to build something real without moments where it feels like nothing is working, where every door closes before you even knock, where the bills come, the people doubt, the failures accumulate, and right before a breakthrough, right before that moment when everything aligns, burnout hits hardest. I've seen it in so many stories, someone grinding in silence, putting in years. Just when their vision is about to manifest, they feel the heaviest weight. But that weight, that fatigue, is proof that you were moving in the right direction. That exhaustion isn't a signal to quit. It's a signal to pause, reflect, and recognize the value of what you've already built. Let me give you some science behind it. Harvard did a study on performance psychology, and they found that burnout isn't most common among the people who don't perform. It's most common among those with the heaviest responsibilities, the people carrying the most weight, the ones who are accountable not only to themselves, but to teams, families, communities, and visions bigger than their own comfort. That study didn't just give statistics. It gave validation to everyone out there carrying the weight quietly, everyone wondering if their tiredness meant they weren't enough. It doesn't. Exhaustion is proof of effort, not absence of purpose. It's a mark that you've been working in alignment with what matters most. Here's what most people miss. They see their tiredness and they feel shame. They feel like they failed. They feel like the spark they had before is gone, like they lost it because they weren't enough, because they didn't do it perfectly, because they stumbled. But that's not the truth. The truth is that spark is still inside you. You just invested it in life. You invested it in challenges and responsibilities and people and dreams. And what comes from investing your energy is not emptiness. It's proof that you've been operating at a high level. That hollow feeling, it's not shame. It's a signal. It's a marker of where you've poured, of where you've given. It's an invitation to honor your effort, not punish yourself for it. When you start reframing it that way, everything changes. When you see exhaustion as evidence of commitment rather than failure, shame begins to disappear. And when shame disappears, energy starts returning. That spark you thought you lost, it wasn't lost. It was working quietly, conserving itself, waiting for you to recognize the value of what you've done. You don't need to become someone new. You don't need to go chase a version of yourself that you think you're supposed to be. You need to honor the person you've been. Honor the hours you spent. Honor the sacrifices you made. Your spark was never gone. It was invested. It's waiting for your acknowledgement. And the moment you honor it, it flows back to you stronger than before. Think about real life examples from people you know, from your own life. Remember the last time you gave every ounce of yourself to a project, to a person, to a responsibility, and at the end of it, you felt drained, almost empty, but also proud. That's exactly the energy I'm talking about. That's your spark being spent. And the reason it feels quiet now is because your body and mind are recalibrating. The fire isn't gone. It's in rest mode, waiting for you to re-engage, waiting for you to direct it with wisdom rather than impulse. The people who truly shine, the ones who leave legacies, understand this principle. They understand that life isn't about never getting tired. It's about investing, recalibrating, and returning to the game with renewed purpose. They understand that every high, every low, every burnout, every flat line is part of a larger process. The spark doesn't just flash once and disappear. It's built over time through consistency, sacrifice, and acknowledgement, and it always comes back when you respect the investment you've made in yourself. So right now, wherever you are, whatever you're feeling, take a deep breath and recognize this truth. You didn't lose your spark. You invested it. You gave your energy to growth, to love, to responsibility, to survival, and now it's time to receive it back. The fire isn't gone. It's been growing quietly beneath the surface, waiting for you to step into alignment with everything you've already sacrificed for. You've paid your dues, and now the spark you think is missing is preparing to come back, brighter, stronger, and wiser than ever. Motivation is a flame that flickers. It comes easy sometimes, burns bright in a moment, then disappears without warning. You can't rely on it. You can't schedule it. You can't depend on it to show up when life gets heavy. That's why so many people chase hype energy from the outside, trying to borrow someone else's fire. It works for a minute, maybe a day, maybe a week, but eventually the borrowed energy fades. It never lasts because it wasn't built for you. Clarity, on the other hand, is steady. It's a compass. It doesn't shout. It doesn't distract. It doesn't leave you stranded when everything else fades. When you've got clarity, you know your direction even when the world is chaotic, even when everyone else is running in a million directions. Think about the times you felt unstoppable in your life. Those moments weren't random. You weren't juggling a dozen different goals. You weren't listening to every opinion, chasing every trend, or trying to impress everyone. You were locked in on one purpose, one mission, one direction. You could feel it in your chest, that quiet certainty that said, I know where I'm going. I know what matters. I will not be shaken. That's what real energy feels like. That's what sparks fire from the inside. But somewhere along the way, life added noise. Bills piled up. People's expectations crept in. Comparisons crept in. Social media told you someone else was moving faster. Someone else was doing more. Someone else was living better. Every new goal you added without asking, does this really matter, chipped away at your energy. Too many priorities with no hierarchy drains the soul. Science backs this up. Decision fatigue alone reduces focus and self-control by over 40%. That's nearly half of your mental strength lost just by choosing between too many things. That's why you feel tired even when you rest. Your body might be healed. Your muscles might be relaxed. But your mind is still working overtime, juggling obligations, options, and distractions. Your spark, the energy that drives you to get up, to create, to chase, it gets buried under the weight of indecision and clutter. You feel drained, not because you're weak, but because your mind is overloaded. Your fire is still inside you, it's just smothered. So how do you fix it? You strip it back. You clear the clutter. You stop asking yourself what everyone else wants and start asking the question that matters most. What is the one thing worth suffering for right now? Not 10 things, not 5, one thing. The thing that matters enough that you're willing to endure discomfort, rejection, and doubt for it. When your actions start aligning with that one answer, something magical happens. Energy flows naturally. The spark reignites because you've given it space to breathe. Fire doesn't come from hype, from temporary excitement, or from loud words on a screen. Fire comes from direction. Fire comes from knowing where you're going, why you're going, and refusing to let distractions pull you off course. Think about some of the greatest come-ups in history. People didn't get there by following trends or borrowing energy. They got there by focusing relentlessly on the things that mattered most. They didn't have unlimited time, and they didn't have unlimited energy. They had clarity. When the distractions came, and they always come, they ignored them. When the noise came, and it always comes, they stayed locked in. That's why their energy lasted, why their spark kept burning, and why the world eventually noticed. And the same principle applies to your life. Your energy is not a limited resource, it's a focused resource. When you scatter it, you feel drained. When you concentrate it, it multiplies. I want you to think about the last time you tried to do too much at once. Maybe you started a new project, answered every message, tried to help everyone around you, and gave yourself no space to breathe. You probably felt busy but unproductive. You probably felt tired even though you were moving. That's not weakness. That's lack of clarity. You were trying to fuel your fire with motion instead of direction. You were trying to make up for lost energy with movement instead of focus. And the truth is, movement alone doesn't spark fire. Focused movement does. Intentional movement, movement aligned with purpose. That's what brings the spark back, stronger than any hype ever could. When you find that thing worth suffering for, suddenly the choices you make start conserving your energy instead of draining it. You stop agreeing to things that pull you sideways. You stop entertaining opinions that don't serve you. You stop chasing distractions that feel urgent but aren't important. Your energy starts moving toward creation instead of consumption. Your spark grows because your actions are no longer scattered. They're concentrated. Clarity doesn't just bring energy, it brings freedom. Freedom from indecision, freedom from comparison, freedom from the mental fatigue that has kept you quiet. The moment you align your actions with clarity, everything changes. You feel lighter, your steps feel surer. The obstacles still exist, but they don't feel like a drain on your spirit. The fire that was buried under noise begins to emerge. You don't need to borrow hype. You don't need someone else's excitement. Your own spark, your own energy begins to pulse with a rhythm that matches your purpose. Steady, it's dependable, it's unstoppable because it's yours. This is why clarity beats motivation every time. Motivation is a spark that can be blown out by wind. Clarity is the lighthouse, guiding your ship through storms. Motivation will leave you stranded when it fades. Clarity will carry you forward because it creates a map and gives your actions direction. Your spark doesn't need hype, it needs direction. It needs focus. It needs the kind of intentionality that allows your energy to multiply instead of leak. When you live with clarity, your spark comes back naturally, effortlessly, and it lasts. Confidence isn't something you stumble upon. It isn't hidden in a book, in a speech, or in someone else's advice. Confidence is earned in the quiet, in the spaces nobody sees, in the private moments when nobody is watching but you. And here's the truth. When your spark faded, it wasn't because you weren't capable. It was because you started breaking promises to yourself. You told yourself you'd start tomorrow. You said next week. You said someday. And over time, every I'll start later chipped away at the trust you had in yourself. Your word to yourself is more important than anyone else's. When that trust falters, confidence falters too. You start doubting your own abilities, not because you lack skill, but because you stop believing you could follow through. Neuroscience actually backs this up. Your brain doesn't just release dopamine from big wins. It releases it from progress, from proof that you can keep your word, from consistent action. That's why small wins matter more than people realize. They're not small at all. They're the foundation of self-trust. You start small enough that failure feels almost impossible. 10 minutes of focused work, one difficult conversation, one action you don't negotiate on. It doesn't need to be huge. What it needs to be is consistent. What it needs to do is remind you that you are reliable, that you can show up for yourself. Every promise you keep rebuilds that relationship you've been neglecting. Every time you follow through, your confidence grows quietly, like roots sinking deep into the soil, preparing to support the tallest tree you'll ever grow. Confidence isn't a roar. It's a steady pulse. It's the quiet assurance that you can handle what comes next. And when confidence starts building again, momentum follows naturally. You don't have to force it. You don't need external validation. The world notices after the fact, not before. That's how people come back quietly. The ones who last, the ones who create legacies, they rebuild from the inside out. Think about it like this. Every time you break a promise to yourself, it's like borrowing against your future trust. You're saying, I don't believe in me enough to follow through today. And it accumulates. It weighs you down. But every kept promise reverses that debt. It's interest compounding in your favor. You do one thing the day you said you would, and the next day you do another. And soon, you feel the difference. You feel like yourself again, not the version hiding behind hesitation and excuses. You feel the spark returning because you've reminded yourself that you are dependable, capable, and worthy of your own trust. Real life shows this too. The people who rise quietly after hardship aren't the ones who waited for inspiration. They're the ones who did the small, deliberate work when it felt too hard. The athlete rehabbing an injury, doing the same routine over and over. The entrepreneur waking up at 5 a.m., writing emails, making calls even when doubt creeps in. The student grinding on a skill every day, even when results seem invisible. They rebuild confidence, step by step, action by action, promise by promise. And the world doesn't notice at first because confidence grows silently, invisibly, until suddenly one day the results catch up and everyone sees the comeback. You can start right now. Pick something you've been avoiding, something small, something that feels doable yet meaningful. Commit to it. No excuses, no negotiating with yourself. Do it consistently even when you don't feel like it. That 10 minutes of work, that one difficult conversation, that single action may seem insignificant, but it is your spark in motion. Every kept promise builds trust, and every act of trust builds confidence. The cycle is simple, but it is powerful. Momentum is born from reliability. Momentum is born from showing up when it's inconvenient. Momentum is born from the quiet victories no one applauds. And here's the beauty of it. Confidence rebuilt this way is unshakable, not because it's loud or flashy, but because it's rooted in evidence. You don't need validation from anyone else. You've seen what you can do. You've followed through. You've delivered. You've proven to yourself again and again that you are capable, and that is how the spark grows into fire. That is how you reclaim energy, purpose, and belief in yourself. Remember, every big comeback in history started the same way, not with a dramatic gesture, not with sudden recognition, but with small, deliberate, consistent action. The person you see standing on top, successful, unstoppable, they didn't start there. They started with one promise, one action, one commitment, and kept it no matter what. They didn't wait for confidence to find them. They rebuilt it from the inside out, quietly, relentlessly, intentionally, and that's exactly how you do it. Willpower is overrated. People talk like it's the ultimate tool for success, like if you just push harder, grind longer, or tell yourself just do it, everything will magically fall into place. But here's the truth. Willpower is limited. It runs out. It tires. It falters when life is heavy. The real game changer isn't how strong you can push. It's the environment you put yourself in. Environment shapes you, fuels you, or drains you. You can't recover in the same conditions that exhausted you. If your spark has been dimming, if your energy has been leaking, look around at what you've been living in, consuming, listening to, and letting in. That's where the battle begins. And don't get me wrong, this doesn't always mean cutting people off. It doesn't mean isolating yourself or turning your back on everyone around you. It means controlling access. Controlling what you allow into your mind, your day, and your life. Access to negativity, access to comparison, access to noise. Think about it. The average person checks their phone nearly 100 times a day. That's 100 interruptions, 100 small jolts, pulling you away from focus, from clarity, from being present with yourself. Every notification, every scroll, every bite of someone else's life that you digest without intention is pulling energy from your spark. That is not willpower failing. It's your environment dictating how you feel. High performers understand this. They design their surroundings before they rely on discipline. They don't wake up and hope to be strong. They wake up in a space that makes strength easy. Their mornings are structured. Screens come second, not first. They avoid content that sparks comparison or stress before their mind is ready. Their conversations are intentional, not complaint-driven. Their spaces are clean, organized, and filled with reminders of what they're building. They curate surroundings that remind them who they are and what they are capable of. That's why they can sustain energy and momentum while the average person is burning out. Energy isn't just physical. It's emotional and mental. And environment is the framework that protects it. Think about your spark as a fire. If you put a fire under constant rain or in a windstorm, it won't grow, it will sputter, it will struggle to survive. But if you put it in a space shielded from the wind, with dry wood and air that allows it to breathe, it will flare, it will grow, it will produce heat, light, and energy. Your environment works the same way. The people, the spaces, the routines, the noise you surround yourself with, these are the winds, rains, and fuels that either drain or ignite your spark. Protecting your environment protects your energy. Protecting your energy gives your spark room to breathe. and breathing room is the first step to letting it flare again. Look at examples in real life. Athletes recovering from injuries don't just exercise harder, they restructure their lives. They sleep better, they eat better, they reduce distractions. They surround themselves with trainers and mentors who push them in constructive ways, not people who complain or doubt them. Entrepreneurs building empires don't rely solely on motivation. They create offices, systems, and schedules that minimize chaos, streamline focus, and maximize output. Even students who achieve extraordinary results don't rely on willpower alone. They create study spaces, routines, and peer groups that push them toward growth. All of these examples show a universal principle. Environment shapes result. And the average person misses this. They think if they just try harder, if they just discipline themselves more, they'll overcome fatigue, burnout, or distraction. But it doesn't work that way. Can't pour water into a leaky cup and expect it to fill. You can't rebuild a spark while keeping the same people, routines, and spaces that drained it in the first place. Protecting your environment isn't selfish, it's strategic. How you safeguard your energy for what truly matters. Here's a practical way to think about it. Evaluate every corner of your life that touches your energy. Your morning routine, who you talk to first thing in the day, what you scroll through, how your home or workspace makes you feel. Is it a place of calm, clarity, and focus, or chaos, distraction, and stress? What conversations do you allow to consume your mind? Which relationships feed your fire and which ones drain it? This isn't about avoidance, it's about design. You are the architect of your spark. Every change you make to protect your energy compounds over time. When you start controlling your environment, the effect is immediate. Small changes, like creating a phone-free morning, limiting negative input, spending more time with people who lift you, designing spaces that inspire focus. Protect your energy and give your spark room to grow. You feel it almost instantly, the quiet sense of focus, the subtle return of motivation, the clarity in your choices. These are signs that your fire is breathing again. And once it has room to breathe, it doesn't take much to let it flare into action, into movement, into progress. Protecting your environment also allows you to honor your priorities without distraction. The more you control your access to noise and negativity, the easier it becomes to act intentionally. Your energy stops leaking into things that don't matter. Your spark doesn't have to fight to survive. It starts flowing naturally toward creation. You start producing without forcing it. You start moving without hesitation. You start feeling like yourself again because the external chaos is no longer stealing pieces of you. The key is intentionality. You can't just hope that things will improve while keeping everything the same. You must take responsibility for what you allow in and what you protect against. The fire inside you is already alive. It doesn't need more hype or pressure. It just needs a space to breathe. A space where it can grow naturally. High performers don't rely on luck, willpower, or external motivation. They structure life so that their energy is protected and their spark has room to ignite. That is how you reclaim your energy, your clarity, your focus, and your purpose. When you protect your environment, you protect your spark. When you protect your spark, you protect your future. Energy grows, creativity flows, confidence rebuilds, and clarity strengthens. All of the tools, the skill, the fire, it was never gone. It was waiting on you to give it the conditions it needed to come alive again. Your environment is not just a backdrop. It is the soil, the water, and the sunlight that allow your spark to grow. Treat it with care, shape it with intention, and watch how quickly your energy, your momentum, and your life transform. Here's the truth most people miss. Your spark isn't coming back the way it used to. And that's not a problem, it's a blessing in disguise. The fire you had when you were starting out was loud. It was reckless, it was impulsive. It burned hot, but it burned fast. That hunger carried you through nights you didn't want to stay awake, through days you didn't want to start. But the world doesn't stay the same, and neither do you. You've been through storms, through battles, through losses that could have broken someone else. You've learned lessons the hard way. And now, when your spark starts coming back, it's not going to roar in the same way it did before, and that's exactly what you need. You're not the same person you were when the fire first ignited in you. You've been tempered by experience, molded by struggle, sharpened by endurance. Early hunger is loud, impatient, desperate. Mature fire is precise, calm, deliberate. It doesn't need to scream to prove its presence. It doesn't need validation to know it exists. And some people, when they see that shift, mistake it for loss. They think that because it's quieter, because it's less visible, that the passion has gone away. They think that because it doesn't feel explosive every day, it isn't there. But the truth is the opposite. The quiet flame is a controlled flame. It's the fire of someone who understands how to preserve energy, focus on what matters, and direct their power without wasting it on what doesn't serve them. Think about anyone who's left a legacy in the world. The people who lasted, the ones who didn't burn out, the ones who built something that mattered. They didn't stay in the same heat forever. They learned how to control the flame. They learned that excitement and energy are important, but they are tools, not the whole equation. They learned that alignment matters more than hype, that purpose is not always loud. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it moves quietly, strategically, while the world is distracted by noise. Respect that phase of quiet growth. It's the period when you sharpen yourself, when you refine your vision, when you lay the foundation for impact that lasts. This is the difference between fire that flares and burns out, and fire that sustains and illuminates for decades. Your spark now is about alignment, not intensity. It's about direction, not volume. You don't need to feel a rush of excitement every morning to know you're on the right path. What you need is the confidence that your actions are in harmony with your purpose, that every step you take, no matter how small, is moving you closer to the life you're building. That's where energy multiplies. That's where fulfillment grows. That's where momentum is sustainable. It's not flashy, it's not headline worthy, but it's unstoppable. Look at the stories of people who made their comebacks quietly. They didn't rush to make noise. They didn't chase applause. They rebuilt themselves from the inside out. They understood that growth isn't always visible, that progress isn't always loud. They learned patience. They understood timing. They understood that a fire that's controlled and precise will last longer and burn brighter than one that's impulsive and explosive. Your spark is evolving in the same way. It's becoming smarter, more focused, more capable of sustaining the work it's meant to do. Respect the process. Respect the quiet moments where it feels like nothing is happening. Those moments are preparing you for longevity, not applause. That slow, steady rekindling of your spark is building resilience, discipline, and clarity. It's teaching you how to manage energy, how to align intention with action, how to protect your fire from distractions and drains. And when the spark fully returns, it will not just be a return to what you had before. It will be a transformation into something stronger, more enduring, more strategic. You will feel it in your chest, in your mind, in the way you move through the world. You will recognize it because it will be unmistakably yours, refined by experience, polished by wisdom, and sustained by purpose. The people who last don't chase validation, they don't chase hype. They chase alignment. They chase a life where every action, every choice, every day contributes to the vision they are building. And that's what your spark is doing now. It's not disappearing. It's not weaker. It's evolving. It's adjusting to the life you've built, the lessons you've learned, and the vision that's bigger than you were when you first started. This is how you reclaim energy that lasts. This is how you turn quiet purpose into unstoppable momentum. You've been through too much to settle for shallow wins. You've experienced enough to understand what truly matters. That fire, that spark, is coming back with precision, with intention, with the depth you didn't have before. It's a fire that won't burn out at the first wind. It's a fire that knows how to weather storms, overcome obstacles, and sustain itself over time. And when you step fully into this evolved spark, you'll realize that what feels quieter is actually more powerful. It's more controlled, more focused, more capable of sustaining your vision over the long haul. So if you've been waiting for your spark to return, understand this, it's not coming back like it was before. And that's exactly what you need. The flame you had before did its job. It carried you through the early days. It built momentum. It taught you hunger. Now the flame coming back is tempered, refined, precise. It's ready to take you further than before because it has learned patience, discipline, and alignment. It's preparing you not for temporary success or applause, but for impact, legacy, and a life that sustains your purpose over time. Respect that evolution. Trust it, protect it, align with it. The spark is back, but it's smarter now. It's focused now. It's ready to carry you to the places your early fire couldn't reach. You're not starting over. You're starting deeper, stronger, more capable. And the life you've been preparing for is waiting on the other side of this evolved fire. So if this message found you today, understand this. You're closer than you think. Not to an overnight transformation, but to sustainable momentum. Your spark doesn't need pressure, it needs patience. It doesn't need noise, it needs clarity. Keep your promises small and consistent. Clean up your environment. Narrow your focus. Honor what you've already survived. You're not behind, you're building depth, and depth lasts. The fire is already there, it never left. It's just waiting on you to move in alignment with who you've become.